The rain had pounded the city streets all night, like it was trying to wash away the ghosts of every bad decision I'd ever made. But now, as dawn cracked open the sky over Brooklyn, the world outside my tiny apartment window felt fragile, like a promise I wasn't sure I could trust. I stood there in the kitchen, the sizzle of bacon in the cast-iron skillet cutting through the hum of the old fridge, grease popping like distant gunfire. My hands moved on autopilot, cracking eggs, whisking them with a fork that clinked against the bowl in a rhythm as steady as my heartbeat. Or what was left of it. Jamie was still asleep in the next room, his soft snores drifting down the hall like a lullaby I didn't deserve. We'd been together 2 years. But last night had ripped the bandage off a wound I'd thought was healed. The argument started small, the way they always do. Him asking why I hadn't told my family about us yet. Me snapping back that it wasn't that simple, not in a world that still whispered, "freak," behind closed doors. Words flew like shards of glass, his voice cracking on, "I need to know you see a future," mine dropping low with, "What if they never accept this?" The door slammed. He crashed on the couch. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the city's distant sirens mocking my silence. The aroma of coffee bloomed in the air, dark and bitter, mingling with the salty tang of frying pork. I flipped the bacon, the fat hissing as it curled, and felt the heat rise to my cheeks. 35 years old, a line cook at that trendy spot in Williamsburg, slinging plates for hipsters who tipped like they cared about my soul. And Jamie, 34, with those hazel eyes that could unravel me in seconds, teaching history to a bunch of rowdy teens who probably thought Stonewall was a new bar on Bedford. He was the steady one, the guy who quoted Whitman over takeout and held my hand in crowded subways without flinching. But me? I was the storm cloud, always one thunderclap from bolting. A floorboard creaked. I didn't turn around. Footsteps, soft and hesitant, padded closer, the faint scent of his sandalwood soap trailing like an apology. His arms slipped around my waist from behind, chin resting on my shoulder, warm breath ghosting my neck. I froze, fork midair, the whisk forgotten on the counter. His chest pressed against my back, solid and familiar, heartbeat syncing with mine in that uneven Morse code we'd perfected over stolen weekends. "Morning," he murmured, voice rough from sleep, lips brushing my earlobe. A shiver ran down my spine, the kind that starts in your gut and blooms outward. Electric. I swallowed, tasting the dryness in my throat. "Bacon's almost done. Eggs too. If you want 'em over easy." Low and rumbling, fingers tracing lazy circles on my hip through the thin cotton of my tee. The rain had stopped. Now there was just the drip-drip from the fire escape outside. A metronome to the quiet. I wanted to lean back into him, let his warmth erase the chill of last night. But the words stuck, heavy as the cast iron. "Alex," he said, pulling back just enough to turn me around. His face was inches from mine, stubble shadowing his jaw. Those eyes searching mine like they always did, patient, piercing. "About last night." "Don't." The word came out sharper than I meant, my hand gripping the spatula like a lifeline. The grease spat again, a tiny burn on my knuckle, but I barely felt it. "I can't right now. Not with the shift starting in 2 hours," and his hand cupped my cheek, thumb stroking the line of my jaw, calloused from years of chalkboards and lesson plans. The touch was soft, but his gaze? It burned. "I'm not asking for promises. Not today. This." He gestured vaguely between us, the space that felt miles wide after our fight. "You and me. Here." The air thickened, heavy with unspoken fears, the what-ifs that clawed at me in the dark. What if my dad, that stoic Irish-American cop from Queens, found out and turned his back? What if the crew at the restaurant, Those rough-edged line cooks who'd slap my back and call me bro suddenly saw me different. Jamie knew it all. Had held me through the tears after my coming-out call to Mom that ended in static silence. He'd been my anchor when the world tilted. I set the spatula down, the clink echoing like a confession. My hands found his waist, fingers curling into the hem of his boxers, the fabric warm from his skin. "I'm scared," I admitted, voice barely above the sizzle. A sigh escaped him, deep and ragged, chest rising and falling against mine. The sound wrapped around me, raw and real, like the first honest note in a song we'd been humming off-key. "I know." His forehead pressed to mine, noses brushing, breaths mingling in the steam rising from the pan. "Me too. But Alex, I love you." The words hung there, simple as sunlight spilling across the chipped Formica counter. No grand gestures. No violins swelling like in those indie flicks we binged on lazy Sundays. Just him, in our cluttered kitchen with its mismatched mugs and the faint mildew scent from last week's leak, saying it over the pop of bacon like it was the most natural thing in the world. My breath hitched, a small gasp that tasted like salt and relief. Tears pricked, hot and unbidden, but I didn't blink them away. Instead, I pulled him closer, our bodies fitting like puzzle pieces worn smooth from use, his lean frame against my broader one, the faint scratch of his chest hair against my shirt. The moment stretched, elastic and infinite, the drip of coffee into the pot, the distant honk of a cab on the street below, the way his pulse thrummed under my palm. "I love you too," I whispered back, the words tumbling out like they'd been waiting lifetimes. His smile broke then, slow and wide, crinkling the corners of his eyes, and he laughed, a soft, breathy sound that vibrated through me. We stood there, foreheads touching, as the eggs set in the pan behind us, golden and perfect. He kissed me then, lazy and deep, tasting of sleep and promise. Hands roamed, mine up his back, tracing the ridge of his spine, his tangling in my hair, tugging just enough to send sparks down my arms. The world narrowed to this, the creak of the floor under our shifting weight, the warmth of his mouth, the quiet certainty that bloomed in my chest like the first crocus after a brutal winter. We broke apart only when the bacon scorched, smoke curling up in lazy wisps. "Shit," I muttered, spinning to rescue it, but he just chuckled, grabbing plates from the cabinet with a clatter. "Let it burn a little. Makes it taste like home." We ate at the wobbly table by the window, knees knocking under the chipped wood, forks scraping china in companionable rhythm. Sunlight slanted across his face, gilding the freckles on his nose, and for the first time in months, the knot in my gut loosened. The call to Dad still loomed like a storm on the horizon, but lighter. As he shrugged into his button-down for the school run, tie loose around his neck, I caught his hand at the door. "Tonight," I said, squeezing his fingers, the calluses rough against my skin. "We'll talk about everything." His nod was steady, eyes shining. "Yeah, we will." The door clicked shut behind him, leaving the echo of his footsteps fading down the hall. I leaned against the frame, the apartment suddenly too quiet, but not empty. Not anymore. In the sink, suds foamed over the breakfast dishes, and outside, Brooklyn stirred to life, vendors calling, buses rumbling, the pulse of a city that didn't give a damn about your secrets but let you carry them anyway. That afternoon, between the lunch rush's chaos, orders barked over the sizzle of grills, the clang of pots like war drums. I texted him a photo of the burnt bacon strip I'd saved, captioned, "Our first casualty." His reply buzzed back, "Worth every char. Love you." Simple words. Real heart. By evening, the subway rattled us home. His head on my shoulder amid the crush of commuters, fingers laced tight. We didn't talk strategy. Not yet, just shared a falafel from the truck on the corner. Grease dripping onto wax paper as we laughed about the kid in his class who'd drawn Lincoln as a drag queen. Back in the apartment, lights low. We tumbled into bed. Bodies tangling in sheets that smelled of us, sweat and soap and that faint, enduring sandalwood. His whispers in the dark were fervent. Hands mapping me like uncharted land. You're enough. We're enough. Buried in his hair. Fierce and trembling, don't let go. The climax built slow. Then crashed, gasps and moans swallowed in kisses. The creak of the mattress a symphony to our unraveling. Afterward, spent in slick, we lay entwined. His heartbeat a lullaby against my ribs. Weeks blurred into rhythm, mornings of coffee and confessions. His gentle prods about the family call met with my halting steps forward. One rainy Tuesday, phone in hand, I dialed Dad's number from the fire escape. Rain pattering on the metal like nervous applause. Jamie waited inside. Silhouette in the window. A mug steaming in his grip. Son, Dad's voice gravelly. Pause heavy as the line crackled. Heard about this fella of yours. My breath caught. World tilting. But then, 'bout time you found someone who sticks. Bring him to Queen's Sunday. Ma's makin' corned beef. The relief hit like a wave. Salty and vast. I hung up, stumbled inside, and Jamie's arms caught me mid-laugh. Mitter. He said yes, I choked out, burying my face in his neck. His hold tightened, a sigh of pure joy rumbling through him. That Sunday, under the fluorescent buzz of the family kitchen, Dad clapped Jamie's shoulder too hard. Mom fussing over plates with questions that skirted the edges but landed soft. It wasn't perfect, no tearful speeches or instant hugs, but it was ours. Months later, as autumn painted the bridges gold, we stood on that same fire escape, city lights twinkling below like fallen stars. His hand in mine, ring glinting, simple band, engraved inside with simple, real. I turned to him, heart full to bursting. Marry me, Thorts, once a tur, now slipped easy as sunrise. His yes was a kiss, fierce and forever. In the end, love wasn't the thunderclaps or the grand reveals. It was the quiet mornings, the burnt bacon, the I love you, as whispered over eggs while the world woke up indifferent. Simple. And God, it was everything.